Hey, this is Mark Bird from Hammock, and you're listening to The New Scene.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to The New Scene. I am your host, Keith, and we're back with another brand new episode. And on the show this week, we have Dave Masters of Signal Hill. Signal Hill just put out a brand new LP this past Friday. It's called Discarded Futures, and this is their first LP since 2016. It's been a long time in the making. 9 new songs spanning 12 years, 2 U.S. states, 2 countries, and it's here now, and it's a fantastic record. I've been a fan of Signal Hill's music since I got into post-rock way back in 2006. It was actually Tommy, my old co-host, who got me into the band. He put their song Los Federales from the debut EP on a mix CD for me, and the rest is history. So we talked to Dave Masters, the guitar player of Signal Hill, about the history of the band, their creative process, the making of their new LP Discarded Futures, and most importantly, the lasting friendship that the guys have held on to through their 20 years as a band. I mean, they've moved across the country. One of them has moved out of the country, but they stay together and they keep making music, which I love. We also have this month's Artist Spotlight interview with Jai Aronsen, vocalist of the band Take Hold. They're a melodic hardcore band coming to us all the way from Auckland, New Zealand. And we talked to Jai about Take Hold's latest EP, Stay Down. They're a great band. It's a jam-packed show. There's a lot of great stuff, and we will be getting to all of that shortly. But first, here's what I need from you. Apple Podcast reviews. We are at 274. We've got to get to 300. And we've got to do it before the end of the year. If you have an iPhone, you have the podcast app. Find that app, open it up, search The New Scene, scroll down a bit, and hit the 5-star button. If you write a review, I'll read it at the end of the show. Also, we have shirts for sale at Death Wish Inc. There's a selection of t-shirts. There's a long sleeve option. There's a few of those left. And follow us on most platforms at New Scene Pod. Also, don't forget to support Iodine Recordings. The pre-order is up for the second pressing of the Untitled discography from Hassan Aisaba. Make sure you pick that up. There's also a second pressing of Glitter and Spit by No Man. Excellent record. Pick that up. There's also a second pressing of Hide Nothing by Further Seems Forever. That's the 20th anniversary edition on vinyl for the first time. 2 new variants. And it features the late, great John Bunch on vocals. You know, I was listening to this record again this past week. Unbelievably good. It ages like a fine wine. If you have not heard it, go check it out. Stretch Armstrong Rocktober shirts are 10% off until the end of the month. It's a cool-looking Halloween-themed shirt. So head to the Iodine store at Death Wish Inc. to pick one up. One Line Drawing has a new 7-inch out. It's called Scan Anxiety. Go check that out. Also, Love Letter have European tour dates coming up in February. If they're playing near you, go see them. Also, say hello to our sponsor for the month of October. 30-something Records. 30-something Records is an independent record label based in Berlin, Germany, and it was founded in 2019 by Matthias and Maren Bacher. And we have been very happy to have them sponsor us for this month. So here's what I want you to do, okay? I want you to check out the many great artists on the label. Far, The Fire Theft, Star Market, Pop Unknown, Orange 9mm. So many great bands. I want you to know that they ship worldwide and have label stores in the US at Steadfast Records and in the UK at Devil Dog Distro. And I want you to check out these releases. Pop Unknown, The August Division. This is the second full length from the Texas greats Pop Unknown. The August Division has been fully remastered for the first time on limited vinyl, and it's out right now, so go pick it up. Star Market, 4 Hour Light, plus a new 2-song 7-inch. The 25th anniversary reissue of 4 Hour Light is on limited vinyl, and it's been remastered with a new layout. Also, the 7-inch has 2 new songs, Radio Silence and Dead of Night. That's Star Market's first new music since 2003, and it's really good. Tripper, Faceless, the new 7-inch EP tape. This is the second EP by Baltimore hardcore greats Tripper. 4 new songs. Go listen. Mates of State just put out a new track called Somewhere. That's the legendary indie pop duo returning with their first new music since 2015. They've got a new album coming in 2025, so keep an eye out for that. And Philemon has a new single out called Gone to Waste. That's from his upcoming LP. Philemon is indie folk from Anton DeBose. Okay, so listen, check back in with me in segment 3. We'll do a wrap-up of the conversation with Dave. We'll talk to Jai from Take Hold. We'll do it all. But right now, we are going to speak to Dave Masters of Signal Hill. Enjoy. All right, we are here now with Dave Masters. Dave, welcome back to the show.
Hey, Keith. Thank you for having me.
Yes, Dave, it's great to have you back. It's been a while since you've been here. And you know, Dave, you missed out on the full band Signal Hill interview that we did way back in, when was that, 2020? You were not there, but we have you here now, and we have you for a long time, so we're going to get all the juicy info. And on top of all that, Signal Hill just put out an excellent new record called Discarded Futures, and I'm excited for the rest of the world to hear it too. And look, we'll cover all of that, Dave, but first I want to ask you, how are you doing today?
Keith, I'm doing pretty good. It's, it is fall here in New York City, my favorite time of year. It's just starting to get crisp. Working on the stuff for the new record is just really fun and rewarding. It takes such a long time, and this phase is just the exciting phase. And so, so in general, I'm doing pretty good today. Thank you for asking. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. Yes, this is the best time of year. And I'm in New York City too. So best time of year / best time of year in New York City. Awesome. And I'm waiting for a record. I'm waiting for my band's record to come out too. So I'm like in the same phase as you. Just nervous excitement, waiting for it to come out.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Where do you live again?
So I'm actually out on Long Island now. We were in Brooklyn for a long time, and then after having a kiddo, our apartment living decided to it was just getting a little too much, and so we moved out of the city. We're about 40 minutes outside of Manhattan via train, so it's not bad.
That's good. That's good. When you lived in Brooklyn, where did you live?
We lived in a neighborhood called Windsor Terrace, which is near Park Slope, kind of Park Slope adjacent. We were like on the southwest side of Prospect Park. So
Dave, now that you're here, I can get your origin story, which is very exciting. You grew up in Arizona?
Arizona, yeah, I did. In Mesa, home of Jimmy Eat World.
Ah.
That's our claim to fame.
How did you like it?
Arizona? It was okay. Like, when I started playing music, not until my late teens, and I had lots of friends who were into a lot of punk rock and hardcore, and we started going to a lot of shows in my teenage years, and the music scenes actually was pretty strong there. I was so funny. One of my really good friends, his old band from the late 90s just released their record on Spotify from back in the day. It's like this old demo that they had and were giving out, and it was like so nostalgic. And I was like, damn, these songs are actually still really good. But there was lots of really, really cool and interesting bands. And yeah, it was a pretty good scene just in general. As far as music goes, I was excited to leave. I grew, growing up in the desert and wanting more. I moved out to Los Angeles. I thought it rained a lot there. Then I moved to New York and realized it doesn't rain very much in Los Angeles.
Not at all. How old were you when you moved to Los Angeles?
Let's see. I had just turned 22 when I moved to LA. And so I was in a band. I was actually in a band in Arizona for about 3 or 4 years. We played a lot of shows in and around like the Phoenix area, and then that band sort of kind of broke up, and my work took me to California. It was an opportunity to kind of relocate, and I was like, there's not much going on here. Let me move. And so so I moved out there and didn't really know what to expect, but kind of started playing a little bit of guitar by myself, and then so I moved out there at 22 and haven't lived in Arizona for a long time.
Does your family still live in Arizona?
They do.
Do you ever go back?
No, it's been a while. Last time I went was actually right before COVID started. So it was like February of 2020.
So you don't get out there very often?
No.
Do you not want to?
No, it's not so much that I don't want to, but my family, we travel a lot for like vacation and stuff. And so, but we try to explore new places. And so I feel like we spend all of our travel time, going out and exploring new places in the world. Not that I have anything, against Arizona or anything.
So you land in Los Angeles, you're 22 years old. How do we get hooked up in the music scene there?
So, I did two things there. So one, like I started just making my own music, and I had this like little looper pedal, and I was just starting to play guitar. So when I was played in bands before, I had played bass guitar actually. But I had always wanted to kind of pick up guitar, and I'd pick it up every once in a while and like learn how to, just kind of strum around and starting to learn a bit. But then I moved to LA, and I just I didn't know anybody. And so I'd come home after work and I'd sit in my room and just sort of loop guitar stuff. Feels like a meme. But that's literally what I would do for quite some time. And so I just started putting out music. This was kind of early internet days, like MySpace and Friendster style. And, so I was doing that. And then I actually had a coworker who he played drums in a kind of like a alternative indie band, and they needed a bass player to play. And so I started playing bass with them for a few months, just while they were looking for somebody. And that turned to be a little bit more serious than I had kind of anticipated. And it wasn't necessarily my favorite music, but the guys were really cool, and it was fun to just be playing. And then I was like, you know what, I kind of want to start something new. And I had known Tim, the drummer from Signal Hill, from Arizona, because he actually lived in Arizona for a bit. And then he and I, we had met up once or twice with another guy named Nicholas, who also played guitar. And me, Nicholas, and Tim just would rent out a studio space and just kind of like play and jam. And it was super fun. But then work schedules, he kind of worked totally different hours than me. And so I felt like we could never really get anything serious going. But I don't know. So I was like, just start scouring Craigslist. And literally I saw a post on Craigslist of somebody who's like looking for somebody who likes Tristeza and Mercury Program and American football and basically like every band that I liked. And I was like, oh, let me just see what this guy's all about. And it happened to be Brian, who was looking to start a band. And he knew Rishi from because they had tried to play a couple of times together, and they'd played they'd done a few things together. And so me, Brian, and Rishi got together one day, just random off Craigslist. I'd sent them some of my solo stuff, and they had sent me some stuff that Rishi had recorded by himself. And we just started, messing around. And then like we had one practice, and I was like, oh, this is really cool. The guys are really cool. This is going to be pretty fun. And everyone was into it. And then like, I don't know, 4 or 5 days later, went to a concert at Knitting Factory and bumped into Tim. And he's like, dude, I got a new job, and like my schedule's a little better now. And I was like, holy shit, no way. Like we should, you should come play. I just had a rehearsal with these other guys. You're going to love it. And so he came over, and like, we've basically played ever since. And then I got out of the other band that I was doing, and just started doing the Signal Hill thing for that. So it's been just kind of a fun and goofy ride since then.
Didn't Brian have like multiple Craigslist ads up that you had
That's exactly right. Yeah, he had. I kid you not, there was one. It was like, Mercury Program, just Tristeza and Mineral, and like basically like it was just like every band that I like. And then like right underneath it was like another post, and it was like every hardcore band I'd ever heard of. And he was like, he wanted to do something. And it was, I had sent him some solo stuff that I had done, and he sent it to Rishi. He's like, hey, I think you would like this. This could be fun. And that got Rishi sort of into it to come in to check it out, because he had just come back up. It was like the perfect timing, man. Like Rishi had just come back up to LA because he's from San Diego originally, and he had come back up to LA to go to school. So this was like late August, early September that we first connected. So like he had just got back to LA, and then bumping into Tim, sort of all kind of serendipitous. Like, so yeah, I don't know. I'm glad no one from the hardcore ad took Brian up. Otherwise, maybe we wouldn't have been playing together the whole time.
That's a good idea. I wish I would have thought of that. Just put up multiple ads, all different genres that I like. That's a great way to cast multiple lines out there and find people to play with.
Yeah, it worked. At least, we're a Craigslist success story.
What kind of music were you into? Were you primarily into Mercury program and that kind of instrumental stuff?
No, I mean, like back then, so this was like, let's see, I probably started to get into a lot of like mid 90s, like emo was probably like my starting point into rock. Like I had lots of friends that listened to a lot of punk and a lot of hardcore shows. And so I went to a lot of those. And, back then, if you went to a hardcore show, it was very common that there'd be like a punk rock band playing, a metal band playing, and maybe an emo band playing. And so like I always found those bands to be a little bit more in my palette. And so I probably started to listen to a lot of that, which got me into a lot of so a lot of bands like Mineral, Sunny Day Real Estate, Christie Front Drive. Those were probably like, those are some of my like favorite bands. And then when we played, so the band that I was in Arizona, we actually we got to play lots of shows, and so we played with Mercury program, and we had played with and we'd always, we knew a lot of people like local in the music scene. And so we'd always go to shows. And so I saw Tristeza many times. And then one of the very first shows our band had played was with this band from Ohio called the 6part7. I don't know if you know them, but
I do. Yeah.
Yeah, they're awesome. And there's an interesting connection with Signal Hill there. So I'll try to loop around to that. But
yeah.
But so it was like, every instrumental band was sort of like Tristeza, 6part7, Mercury program. Those were sort of like the kind of the key instrumental bands. But there was others back then too, like Pele and Dianoga and some others that were sort of like I don't know. I always call them kind of like emo adjacent, only because it's like they were always touring with like you'd see them touring with like Braid or like the Promise Ring or like those types of bands. And so that's how I would hear about a lot of them. Cause I don't even think I had the internet back then. So typically would just find out about bands through, either touring or who they were touring with or liner notes, that sort of thing.
So what's the connection there with 6part7?
So we had played a show with them, my Arizona band, and then they ended up staying at my house, and then they'd come through Arizona quite a few times, and they'd stay with us, me and my roommates, and became friendly with them. And it just so happened that the show that I saw Tim at, it was the band M83, and 6part7 was opening, which was a really weird lineup. I don't they weren't like touring together. I think 6part7 was coming through, and M83 was playing, and they sort of merged the bill. So I loved both of them, and so I was really excited to get to see both of them. And yeah, I bumped into those guys there. But yeah, that's kind of how I connected. Like I would have gone to see M83 anyway, because I really loved it. But the fact that like 6part7, who I loved, and I really liked the guys, they were so sweet. And so that's how we got connected.
Signal Hill, not originally intended to be an instrumental band, correct? It just kind of shook out that way.
Yeah, I mean, well, I don't know. I mean, I knew that I would never sing. We did have a couple practices, and we had a couple early songs where like Brian had had done some singing in the band, but we never sort of really pursued that. Like, but Rishi had so I had done some stuff, and Rishi had kind of created a demo with 3 songs on it that he had called Signal Hill. So like that was sort of the name that he had already picked, and he had some songs that he had already sort of like written. And yeah, we played a couple of those songs. But yeah, just kept the name Signal Hill, and just but those were all instrumental, the ones that he had recorded too. And so I don't know. I think we I don't know if it was supposed to have lyrics or not. I guess I didn't really think too much about it, but I know we at least tried a couple times and then just said, all right, no, we're not going to do that.
So how does it just naturally evolve into no vocals? Does Brian stop singing? How does it happen?
To be honest, I don't remember exactly. I remember like he had tried to sing a couple of times, and then I was like, oh, it sounds cool without it too. Like, I don't know, maybe we don't need it. And it was like trying to think of what lyrics to write and stuff like that. And it just became like a little bit easier. And yeah, I don't know. I don't remember the actual progression. I'm sorry. I know that's kind of a lame story. I'll just create some drama for the sake. Yeah, Brian was like a bad singer, and so
fist fight.
Yeah.
People weren't working out. We had to kick them out of the studio.
Exactly. That's something like that happened. No, it was pretty natural, kind of like an organic evolution.
I got you. So we're together. We're playing. What happens? Do we start just playing around Los Angeles?
Yeah. So we had our very first show ever was that in Rishi's parents' house on New Year's Eve, and in San Diego. That was our very first show ever. And so we had only been a band. We'd been a band for a few months by that point, and then like we started playing shows around LA, and then we connected with another band on MySpace called You May Die in the Desert, who's based in Seattle.
Oh yeah, they're great.
Yeah, they're awesome. And so we were like joking with them, and they're like, "Hey, we're going to go on tour. Do you guys want to come with us?" And we're like, "Oh, for real?" So we played. I don't know. It was very early on. Maybe like I want to say maybe like our 8th or 9th show ever. We're like playing in Seattle with You May Die in the Desert, and we're kind of like making our way back. We played with them and one other band. We sort of toured the whole way down to San Diego, and so that was pretty. I don't remember I don't know how many shows we had been in at that stage, but it was not a lot, and the songs were rough. But we didn't care. It was a super good time, and we're still friends with those guys. But yeah, so we played a lot, and then we had over the years, and we sort of finally we recorded a demo, which somebody probably still has within the band. I don't. I've lost that. And then we went and actually recorded an EP, which became our self-titled EP out in like 2007. And then just played more and more. And then in 2009, Rishi moved to Scotland to go back to school, and it was like right after we had released More After We're Gone. So that was kind of like that was really stopped then for a while, and we didn't know what the future of the band was going to be kind of at that point. But yeah, we played tons of shows all in around LA, played with lots of cool bands. Still super grateful to get to play with some awesome stuff. And like LA, it's there's so much always happening in LA, just like New York. And but there's lots of really cool music and cool venues that really were into stuff that like us, and met a lot of bands who were local who were similar to us. But it took time to kind of make that happen.
So Rishi moved to Scotland right after More After We're Gone comes out.
Yep. So I think that record came out in June, and then he left. I want to say it was like August of that year. I don't remember the exact dates, but it was something like that. And then he was there for a year.
So is that his thing? Does he just move places?
He went to college in LA, and then he relocated to Scotland for school. And then right after school finished, we were we wrote an EP in between there too. He actually flew out from Scotland, and we worked on what was called the Distance EP, and because of the distance, and and that was sort of our first time kind of writing music, not all together in the same room. And yeah, so he moved to Scotland.
And he also moved to New York, UK.
Yeah, so he moved to New York, and then when he moved, Now he lives in London. Yeah.
Is that tough at all for you personally and for the band? It must be to some degree, right?
Well, it's really funny. We've been a band not living in the same cities for longer than we were together in the same city. So
I see.
We've passed that threshold for quite some time. So yeah, I mean, like on a personal note, because I love Rish, it's hard to be away from him. But also, like when I moved to New York from LA, like Tim and Brian were still there. And Rishi was trying to figure out where he was going to land after school in Scotland. And he ended up moving to New York. And so like we lived close together for like his first year in New York. Like we got together. That's when we kind of wrote the Chase the Ghost album. He and I had never lived that close to each other before. And so I was like seeing him like 3 days a week. It was like the best. And yeah, and then we were working on that record kind of during that period when we're both in New York. But yeah, it's hard. Like it's hard to be away from people that you love and care about and don't get to see as often, and plus people who you create art with, right, and make music with, and so not being together as much as it's harder. But like excited for him doing stuff that he loves out there, and kind of same with Tim and Brian too. It's still out on the West Coast.
When Signal Hill is rolling, 2007, 2008, what is your life like at that point? What was your job and what did you want to do? Like, did you want to tour as much as possible? Were you just balancing the band with work? What were you up to?
Yeah, just kind of balancing the band with work. This is, I've never really been in a situation where like I felt like I could actually leave and tour for a long time. So like, and I like never really, I don't want to say took it too seriously, but like never attempted to make a career out of it, right? Like just wanted to do it for fun and make songs, and grateful that people have liked it. But yeah, never really, never had this as like a full-time career. Look, we would have loved to play more and more shows, but like kind of everybody was in a similar situation where it's like all kind of balancing work, and trying to still do this and have fun with it, and not make it too serious.
Yeah. More After We're Gone, the 2009 debut LP. I put that up there with any other classic post-rock release. I think that's a flawless record, and it's one I go back to all the time. Your thoughts, Dave?
So I'm actually really proud of that record. Like it was the first. So I don't know if it's the same for everybody in the band, but like I had put out a lot of like EPs and stuff with bands, but I had never done a full-length album. And this one was like, so this was my first time ever like playing in a band, putting out like a full record. And one, I don't know, I really liked the songs. I thought like it was the most cohesive we had been as a band at that point. Like I felt like we were playing a lot, and like I think the songs had really started to come together in a good way. And like I don't know, I'm still proud of that record. I can remember back fondly like writing it and finally getting into the studio and actually recording it. And that process was really fun. And yeah, I don't know, I was, we repressed it, had it kind of remastered not too long ago, and it was fun to actually come back and like re-listen to that album and be like, oh, I really still like some parts of this a lot. So I don't know. Yeah, I'm still proud of it.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. Do you see an increase in your audience after that comes out? Because, the internet is certainly a thing by now. People can get more access to it.
Like you mean like back when it first came out, or the remaster?
Let's say both.
Okay. So like, I think it didn't, I don't know. I don't know what to expect. I mean, it's like post rock is a pretty niche genre. Like we didn't have huge expectations, and and admittedly, I think a lot of the reviews that we had gotten at the time um, were kind of lumped us into just like they're kind of just explosions in the sky. It's a 6 out of 10. So
That's so inaccurate.
yeah, I know.
Because like explosions is like, I don't know, the more crescendo, slow into big type thing. Signal Hill has like a groove and a happiness that you don't typically hear in post rock. I think it's very unique.
Dude, so I really appreciate you saying that. I wish you were around back then to share that with folks. Yeah, because it did feel like it kind of got put into a like a it's okay, it's a meh record. I actually like it is really funny. I go back to it, Keith, and like I don't know that there's like a note on that record I would change, right? Like I still
exactly. I like there's not a lot of flawless records out there. That's one record I can put on start to finish, and there's nothing that I'm like, oh, I would change this, or oh, let me skip this track.
Yeah, no, yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's so cool, like to hear you say that. And when we recorded it, it was actually a really interesting recording process. So our friend Patrick, who also worked with us on Distance and Chase the Ghost, he's like an acoustical engineer, and but he had some interest and passion in sort of recording music. And we would go into his office, like where his company was, at night after hours. It was like a regular company with like blueprints for like acoustical engineering projects, and we'd set up guitar amps and stuff in there. We recorded drums at an actual studio, just so happened to be in Signal Hill, where we recorded some other stuff too. Interestingly enough, but we'd go into Patrick's place, and we'd just record and kind of set up shop in the office. There's some pictures in the More After We're Gone vinyl repress. We put like this collage of photos, and it was fun kind of digging out photos from that era, because it was like, oh yeah, I remember being here, like in the office, eating tacos right down the street all the time, and like just working on all those songs, and having there wasn't like the studio pressure of like having to finish it in a certain amount of time. And we knew he could do it. He was really good. He did our friends Beware of Safety. He did their first EP and their second album too. And we knew that it would sound great with him. And so we had a lot of time to kind of work on the parts and really get it right. And yeah, it was fun. But then we redid it, and like I don't remember if it was like, well, I guess it was the 10-year anniversary. Yeah, it must have been the 10-year anniversary when we repressed it. More people had heard of it over the years, and people had asked us to do it on vinyl, and so we were excited to finally put it out on vinyl, because when we did the initial CD, sort of we paid that ourselves, and vinyl wasn't nearly as much of a thing back in 2009. Obviously, we had vinyl, we collected it and stuff, but like as a way that people were consuming music and wanting to buy it, it was not really a thing.
Your songs, do they become about something, and who decides? Like because when there's lyrics, typically the person writing the lyrics, they decide what the song is about because they're writing it. But let's say Rishi writes a song. Does he decide what it's about? But like, would you have a different meaning about what the song is about because you write your parts? Like, how does that all work?
Yeah, it's so like when we first started, we were just doing goofy song names. So like our first EP was just like mostly inside jokes that then became song names. But then when we did actually More After We're Gone, actually the title More After We're Gone and Secret Society and Men Before Them are actually all lines from a Twin Peaks episode. So we sort of had some influence on that. But we didn't really have I would say like a full theme when we were kind of writing that record initially. But then as we started to kind of to land on a concept, sort of this notion of like, hey, there's a small spot for us, but then like this kind of circle of, evolution. So the songs names just started to kind of come together a bit. In fact, if you the CD cover of Signal Hill, like it actually or the original More After We're Gone CD, if you put those next to each other, if you kind of stack them side by side, it's sort of like a parallel mountain that just continues and sort of rolls over another mountain. It's that thought of like things sort of like happening, and then it kind of starts fresh. Man takes over, and it kind of became somewhat like a thematic like that. And so that's kind of how that one worked. But then when we started doing more music, we started to get a little bit more serious about how we thought about the songs and how we thought about the names. And admittedly, not my strong suit. So I was always pretty like indifferent on a lot of things as long as it didn't rub me the wrong way. But like I was never the person who was like always coming through with a lot of song name ideas. Tim and Rishi would name a lot of them, and I'd feel pretty good about it. But then we'd say, okay, well, how do these even work together? And then we'd start to rethink that a bit and think about kind of a theme, which like Discarded Futures has a lot more sort of thematicness behind it, as did like Chase the Ghost.
Discarded Futures. This is the latest Signal Hill LP, our first since Alturas in 2016, right?
Yep.
This is a big deal.
It is. It's so funny because like it's the exact opposite record of Alturas, and not like Rishi played almost no guitar on Alturas. He played keyboards and pianos almost exclusively. I think he plays like 3 guitar lines across the whole record.
Right. And Discarded Futures. Now, I like Alturas, I do, but Discarded Futures is the Signal Hill I want. I want the post-rock riffs, I want the heavier parts, the lighter parts. That's what I want.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Yeah, it was funny because after Alturas, Rishi was like, all right, I don't want to play keyboard on the next one. And so like he started just writing songs again, like playing the guitar, and it just, so it just sort of evolved that way. But yeah, like he similarly, like, this one has less keyboards than any of our other releases just in general too. So like it's really a much more like kind of guitar forward record for us, at least on the guitar side.
And I think the guitar interplay in Signal Hill is one of the biggest highlights of the band. Like I used to, back in the day when I lived a more wild lifestyle, I would just get high and stay up all night and play guitar along with More After We're Gone.
Oh, nice. Did you write your own riffs to it, or did you play the riffs from our stuff?
Both.
Oh, nice. Yeah, you should record that sometime. I'd like to hear that. When we do the 20th anniversary,
I'll do my interpretation. We'll put out a new variant. It's going to be crazy.
I love that. Yeah, I love that.
Discarded Futures. So, I mean, we're all over the place now. You're in Long Island. Rishi is in the UK, right? Where's everybody else?
So Tim is in Los Angeles still, and Brian is in Oregon, actually. So yeah, we're all over the place. And it's funny, Keith, because we were supposed to. So like this, well, one, being spread apart is not the most ideal for a speedy process for writing a record.
Right.
Historically, like when we wrote Chase the Ghost, and actually when we wrote Alturas, like, Rishi and I had lived in New York for a while. And so we would get together and write a lot. And so it would be awesome. And then Brian and Tim would fly out, like, I don't know, every 5 or 6 months they'd come out, and we'd rehearse, write stuff. And then we'd play a show, some shows in, whether it was New York or Philly or whatever. So we kind of had that rhythm for a while, and it was really productive. Like I love More After We're Gone. There's some songs on Chase the Ghost that I really like, feel very passionate about, just because of when we wrote them and bring back a very like sort of nostalgic period. But during that period, it was, we could actually make a lot of progress. When it was me and Rishi sort of starting, and then those guys coming out like a few times a year. But then when we're all far apart, like it takes a really long time. because that sort of feedback loop is just not there, right? It's like, hey, I sent this song, my time, in New York on Friday night. Rishi hears it Saturday, doesn't get to play on it until like the following week, right? And it's like, okay, so it just takes like so now it's like a noodle of a part, that sort of thing. Or he'll write us something and I won't be able to get to it for a couple weeks, and then sort of like it's a lot of lost momentum, so the thing that really helped us kind of get this thing over the edge is we had a whole bunch of songs that we were working on and demoing and stuff, which was going awesome. But then when we finally we had an opportunity because Tim was going to go to London to just visit Rishi, and he's like, what if we recorded drums while I'm there? And it's like, holy shit, well, we better finish these songs. And so that became like kind of a forcing function for us to sort of take it a little bit more serious to get it done so that he could go record drums in London.
What happens? Do you guys sequence the drums and then Tim knows what to play? Are the songs mostly done? How does it work?
No. So like the way so I'll give you an example of one of the songs on the record. It's called Fever Dream. So we wrote that song, that song came together faster than most songs for us, but it was just guitars for quite some time. So me and Rishi would just record our parts to a click track and then send it, we got it kind of, a rough structure sort of put together, and the song was mostly laid out. And then we send it off to Brian and Tim, and then, they kind of would add their parts whenever they could get to it. And Tim has he's got an electronic drum. He's got a regular drum kit, but he lives in an apartment. And so he would just record on his electronic drums and write parts and then kind of send them back to us. But just that it feels like most of the time the way that it typically works, not always, but it's like Rishi and I will get a kind of a rough foundation and be sending that back and forth with everybody to kind of give feedback. Oh, I like that part, or I don't like that part as much, or maybe we should do that part 3 times. And then we'll kind of lay it out in a structure that feels pretty good, and then get kind of everybody's parts will get added over time.
Has it ever happened where, because you're starting with guitar or even starting with a drum part, it sounds like sometimes, has it ever happened where we record it and put it together and then we're like, oh no, that doesn't really work and we have to reorganize everything?
No, I mean, for this, especially for this record, we spent, we did a lot kind of in the demo phase. I didn't, to be honest, Tim was at the very end, we had kind of we had all the songs that are on the record and we had them all pretty much laid out. And then Tim was sort of sending over refinements of drum parts, alongside it. And so there was parts where I don't know about that, or, we were going back and forth and kind of tighten it up together as a band, but nothing ever really felt completely off. But, and maybe part of that is sort of the fact that we've been playing music together and making stuff together for a long time. We kind of have a general sense on each other's sort of, kind of what we like and don't like. Right.
Right. Fever Dream, one of my favorite tracks on the new record too. So I'm not surprised to hear that's one that came together quickly.
It's always how it works, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
This album recorded with the great Kevin and Dye of Gates as well.
Yep. We really wanted to work with Kevin and there was a few projects that we had worked with her on, and for remixing and remastering some stuff, and knew that it would be a good fit for us. And so as we started to work through the record, the drums were already done because those happened in London at a studio in London, a guy Rishi knows pretty well.
How does that work? Does Tim are Tim and Rishi together in London? Is it just guitar parts that Tim is playing along to? How does that work?
Yeah. So we had when we did the demos, we basically had parts we had every part kind of laid down. So when Tim went, he was basically playing to a click track and our pre-recorded kind of scratch guitars. So he had the songs structures all there. And
he had the parts written. Was there stuff he had to come up with too?
No, I mean, he had a pretty good idea. So that's kind of what we were sort of in crunch time. I don't know. I say crunch time, but it was probably think we had about 2 months to sort of finish the songs. Now most of them were already pretty sketched out, and so we knew what they, kind of what they were, what they would be. And so he was working more on like, refining drum parts, and like came down literally to like the last day. I remember going, okay, I got no more time. This is what I got. And we were, kind of giving feedback on those parts. And then, yeah, when he got to London, they spent a couple days in the studio, sort of laying down all the drum parts. But yeah, he had click tracks. We used a software to kind of whiteboard all of the songs sort of virtually.
Mm-hmm.
And so we knew, here's the tempos, here's how many times we play each of the parts. And so we kind of had a map for everything. And yeah, and then he went and just sort of banged out the drums and, just killed it. He's a super talented guy.
Some of it recorded in Queens as well with Kevin?
Yep. So we recorded in a studio called Two World Studios. It was fun. That was actually the first time we had all been together in the same room since I think like it had been like, I don't know, 4 years or so. It had been a long time. And so, yeah, it was cool to just be together. And like when we, I wasn't sure if we'd be able to do that for this album or not. And I was so happy that we could all be together and record together.
So everyone was together at one point.
Yep, in New York. So even though Tim's parts were done, he came and spent the time with all of us, and it was I'm so glad. It was really nice.
That must have been awesome, especially because you were supposed to play a couple shows in 2020, right? But then the pandemic wiped that out.
Exactly. We had our first ever UK tour that was booked with good weather for an airstrike. And then we had, like a handful of shows in the Northeast. So those were all booked, ready to go. We were rehearsing for them. But we were rehearsing virtually. So like I was relearning all my parts. I mean, I hadn't, the last show we had played before that was when Alturas came out in 2016. And so, hadn't thought about those songs for at least 4 or 5 years, and so we were getting ready to do that. And then, those dates were supposed to start like, I think it was like March 4th, 2020. And so literally right as COVID hit, there was like a day or two where we're like, well, I guess we got to cancel it now. So yeah,
I had tickets to whatever the New York show was. I can't remember where, but listen, you'll be back at some point.
We're hoping to. We've been talking about seeing what we could get together. We like, there won't be an extensive tour by any stretch, but like, we're gonna try to do a show in New York. Going to try to do a show in Los Angeles, and then if we can make it to the UK to do a show there, we'd love to do London. But I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, all of your hometown shows will be in like the best places: UK, Los Angeles, New York.
I know that, and I haven't been to London in since 2012. I haven't been there since Rishi's lived there. So it'd be good to get out there and see him too. So yeah.
So the album is coming out very soon. Are we excited? Would you say, Dave, that it is the best Signal Hill record of all time?
Well, like I think that's sort of the standard, right? It's like, hey, we've gotten better. We feel more confident. And like, I think in general, the way that I would describe this album is like, it's the record we would have made in like 2007 if we were better. And I definitely think it's some of our best songs ever. I think it's the best production we've ever had. And like, I don't know. I'm really proud of it. We spent a lot of time kind of really, really thinking through the parts and like demoing them. And it was fun because like, since the pandemic, I've also been noodling a lot on my own stuff. And so getting to blend some of the kind of, the textures and sonic stuff sort of layered in throughout that I've been doing on my own stuff has been like a nice way to bridge both of those worlds for me. So that's been really cool. But yeah, I don't know. It's like, yeah, I'm really proud of it. There's a lot that I like about it. And yeah, so yeah, very excited.
I've spoken to everyone in the band, some of you more than once, and everybody seems so nice, but has there ever been a major beef between Signal Hill and another band or with each other?
Um, I I don't think so. You know, I honestly, like, I gotta say, I feel so fortunate to have just been lucky enough to play with talented and just lovely people. Honestly, like we we all kind of started it, in similar sort of places in our lives. Like Rishi was a little younger than the rest of us, but like um, we none of us ever really took it so seriously that like it never put a lot of pressure on ourselves to do anything that didn't feel true and sincere to what we wanted to do. And so like that just makes things a lot easier. I'd say the only time there's a moment in time that I could think about where I remember Tim got really annoyed with me because we were playing a show, and he was setting up, but we were like rushed on time, and I remember like rushing him, and he looked up at me and he gave me a look, and I'll never forget that look. And that was about the biggest beef that I think we've ever gotten into. So if that gives you a signal and scale, like I would say that there was periods of time where we've always just tried to sort of like be helpful to other bands, and in return, like that's been positive for us because people have done really nice things for us just naturally. And so I think like trying to whatever we could do to be part of the community and just be kind and friendly to other bands, we've tried to do, and luckily that's been reciprocal in most cases from other bands. So yeah, I don't know. Haven't no real drama, unfortunately. So boring, Keith. I know.
No, that's a good thing. My philosophy is I always try to make sure my side of the street is clean. You know, I try not to have an attitude or an ego, or if I slip into that, I take accountability for it and just and I try to be open-minded to everybody's ideas. So like that, I just try to keep my side of the street clean. So I know if something blows up, it's not me, it's the other person. And then I can like not react to it.
Yeah, I mean, I like that analogy, keeping my side of the street clean. Yeah, and like, it's like I can just tell you, like the first time we ever practiced together, it's like we were just joking and like having fun, and it's been that way like ever since we've been a band. Like just we have like everybody kind of has like their own thing in the band, and like long standing jokes, and just people that I love dearly, and just feel grateful that we get the opportunity to play together. And like we've always said that we'll do this for as long as it's doesn't feel like stress and pressure. And so like that's kind of the incentive for us to keep it fun, to just keep getting to create.
Yeah. You started making ambient music during the pandemic as well, yes?
Yeah, yeah.
How does that start? Do you just need to kill time, or?
Yeah, I especially those early days of the pandemic, like all of the kind of uncertainty, right, of things, and like I don't know, I needed some way to kind of escape a bit, and like not having friends here to play music and not being able to get together with people just sort of like forced me to kind of live in my own little world. And so yeah, I just started noodling around with making stuff, and then yeah, that's so I've just been doing that consistently since. It's again another low pressure thing. I regular work is plenty hard. Like I like to spend my time doing stuff that doesn't feel hard, where I can. So yes, I've been doing that, and still do that. I actually been doing this project this year where I've attempted to put out new music every week this year. And so I think next week is week 42 of the year, and I've got that release done and scheduled. And so I got to do it 10 more times, and I will have completed it every week this year. So
Every week this year.
every week, yeah, 50. There'll be 52 straight weeks of new music that I put out on Spotify and Bandcamp.
That explains a lot because I was scrolling through your music on Spotify and I was like, wow, he's put out a lot of stuff. So I guess I guess this year is like we're really delivering.
Yeah, well, like I've I get to play like on typically like on Saturday mornings a little bit when the kiddo's eating breakfast and he's sort of watching YouTube. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna play guitar for an hour, and then kind of whatever comes out of that session, like I'll chop up and that's it. Like I don't. I'm not too precious about it. Like there's some of the things I feel excited about when I come back and listen. Some I'm like, all right, well, not my favorite piece, but it'll be drowned out by next week's release. So,
Right.
but it's been a not too different than creating sort of a podcast weekly, right?
Yeah, I was just thinking about that because you said like you put it out every week and sometimes you love it, sometimes you don't. Me too. And not having anything to do with guests. I'm talking strictly about me. Like I'm very critical of my own work.
Yeah.
And sometimes I might be like, oh no, the energy level wasn't enough. Oh no, I stumbled too much. Like I didn't get the sentences out clearly enough. So some weeks I'm like, damn, I was on. That's awesome. And then some weeks I'm like, I was tired. Work was busy. It has to come out every single week. I've made that mandate for myself.
And that's so very similar to me. And I, like just like with you, right? Like send the email. Here's all the stuff you're going to need in order to record this week. Like I've effectively operationalized the whole process for me with being able to kind of like put artwork out. Like I have a template that I can use, and but it's still like it's enough where I feel like I get to be creative because the photos that I get to take for it, thinking about the song titles, thinking about the music and just the creation aspect of it. And then, but also not being so concerned with everything being perfect. Like with Signal Hill, like that record took a long time for us to write, record, and ultimately then once it's recorded, you're going through it now. It takes forever to put out, right? And this is the exact opposite. It's like, nope, recording it on Saturday, it's going to be live on Friday, and not going to think twice about it.
Yeah, and that makes sense. Like with Signal Hill, with a band with 4 people working on it, with everyone spread out, you want to take the time. You want it to be a bigger thing. You want input. You want it to be this big thing, right? Like I'm not going to take 6 months to do one podcast.
Yeah.
That's stupid. With this particular creative endeavor, it's out every week, and what we get is what we get every week.
Yeah, that's it. And that sort of like that output, I think, sort of fills the sort of scratches an itch that I like of just being able to create and forcing myself to create every week. And like,
yes,
but then like I have this genuine like feeling of satisfaction and gratitude about the new album, and the fact of how much energy and work went into creating it. It's very different than the solo stuff, and I'm just grateful to have kind of both of those outlets to stew and noodle on.
Yeah, same here, because I'm in a band too, but we don't get to practice every single week, and we don't put something out every single week. That stuff takes time. So the downtime would kill me. I need to be working on something constantly. So I'm very happy that I have this as well. And it sounds like you've got both. And look, that's the place to be.
That's the place to be. That's how I like it. So you said Fever Dream was one that you liked on the new record. Any other highlights from your perspective, Keith?
Yes. The first 2 tracks, I've only listened to the whole thing twice so far, so I don't have it completely locked into my head yet. But definitely the first 2 tracks, and definitely Fever Dream. But I mean, the whole thing is great.
All right, cool. Yeah, I hope you like it. I hope it finds its home for you like More After We're Gone did over time, because we're I think we're stoked on how it turned out.
I most certainly think it will. And look, I don't want to discredit any other Signal Hill release. I've got the discography typed out in front of me right now, and I'm looking at it. And there's songs on every single release that I love. And that's awesome.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, of course.
Appreciate you.
Your career, Dave, what do you do?
So I work in product management for a online real estate company. So I get to work with a lot of smart people, get to build some fun stuff with people who are looking to buy houses.
Like what do you do specifically though? Like what kind of product management?
I don't know. I sit in meetings all day. All right, make
That's
slide
what I
decks.
was wondering. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's
My
it's
job is like team meetings, Excel sheets, emails, phone calls, sometimes site visits. It's pretty standard stuff.
I love it. I get to work with a really really talented team, and we've like helping sort of bring new products to market to for people who are searching for homes. It's fun. It's like really fun, really rewarding. But yeah, it's a lot of meetings and a lot of but a lot of work. But it's rewarding work.
Do you get to work from home?
I do. Yeah, now I do.
That's a pandemic thing?
Yeah, like I would say really even kind of when I first moved to New York, I was traveling a lot for work at the time. And we'd find that we had an office here, and I would work. I'd work on the road all the time, right? And just kind of traveling for work, and so I'd always be away. And I'm like, okay, I don't feel like going into the office today because I've been out for forever. I need a lot to catch up on, so let me just stay here and kind of had those in the early days. But then yeah, once the pandemic hit, we were home. We basically had a work from home model for 2+ years, and then slowly starting to return to office, and the office policies changed a little bit, but we don't. They didn't make all of us mandatory to return back to New York because the space wasn't quite big enough. We've grown a lot of people here, and so yeah, I don't have to go back.
That's great. Yeah, my team was remote before the pandemic.
Oh, okay.
So there's no excuse for me to have to go into the office 4 or 5 days a week anymore. And I am determined to keep it that way.
Yeah, it's I gotta say, like, being from home has been really nice. Like,
especially because you have a kid now.
I get to, when I grew up, like, my parents never took me to school, or picked me up from school, and so like I get to do that a lot. It's like it's sort of my part of my break in the afternoon where I, like pick them up in like 2:15, takes 10 minutes, but it's like 10 minutes that I get to see my kiddo in the middle of the day, and it's
yeah.
Versus the other ways where it's like if I was in the office till like 7 or and then 6:30, 7, and then get home at like 8, he's like going to bed. It's
yeah.
So yeah, it's been a really nice I think for our family just in general, and for me personally as a dad, and getting to kind of be around the kiddo more.
How old is he?
He's going to be 9 in a month. So
9.
Yeah, he was born about 3 weeks after we recorded Alturas, and his first birthday was, we played shows the year after. So his first birthday was like 3 or 4 days after we played the last show we have. In fact, it's the last show we have played as a band in 2016.
Was that at Matchless?
That was at Matchless, yeah.
I was there.
Yeah, that's the last show we've played.
Yeah.
So
that was a good time.
Yeah, I think 8 years ago, I think. Yeah, 8 years ago.
Boy, a lot has changed in 8 years, let me tell you.
I know. We're all 8 years older, that's for sure. But yeah, I don't know. Hopefully we can, make up the shows that we didn't get to do in the pandemic, at least some of them, and play some songs. It's hard now though, because it's like I feel like the catalog has gotten bigger, and I don't know how we dwindle it down to like 6 or 7 songs for a live set. It's a lot.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to send you my set list suggestion.
All right.
Okay, I'll make it easy on you guys. How does that sound?
You know what? That sounds great. Can you take, if you can take into account the tuning factors of my nonsense, that would be much appreciated.
Just bring like 6 guitars. It's fine. Yeah. But I speak for the people. I know what we want to hear, so I can assist.
No, I love that. That's awesome.
So, Discarded Futures will have just come out by the time everyone hears this podcast. It's out via Better Looking Records. So we're label mates with Tristeza now. Great, right?
Yeah, some of the early Tristeza stuff. It's so funny, Keith, because like I connected with Paul quite some time ago, who's the founder of Better Looking Records, and so many bands that I used to listen to. Like I knew of Better Looking Records back in like their early 2000s, because a lot of those records like Gloria Record and Jealous Sound and the album Leaf, Tristeza, yeah, all those bands. I listened to all that stuff, and so like it's one, Paul's amazing guy. He's such a nice dude, and yeah, to be associated with that label is it's awesome. It's been really fun.
That's awesome. So we want everyone to purchase the record, right? Or at least listen to it.
Yeah, I hope people listen to it and like it. And we did. I think we did 250 copies on vinyl. That's the only physical release that we're doing for it. And so, stream it, share it, add it to your playlist, whatever. Any of that is, we appreciate it.
Awesome. Yeah, and everybody check it out, listen to it. And look, if you're a fan of post-rock and you have somehow not heard Signal Hill yet, do yourself a favor and check out the discography. It's one I go back to all the time, and I put them right up there with everybody else. This Will Destroy You, Mogwai, who else? Explosions, all that stuff. Like Signal Hill, I like because it's a little different. It's like chill, and it's a little more upbeat. It's like happy. The guitar, it's not all super happy, but like, it like intends to put me in a good mood more than like a sad mood. And I like that.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Appreciate that, Keith.
Of course. Look, I'm here to boost you up and Signal Hill up and have more people listen to it. So, Dave, I love the band. It's great to have you back here. Signal Hill has been the soundtrack to a lot of my life because I discovered you guys around when the first EP came out, and I've been listening to you ever since. I'm excited for the rest of the world to hear Discarded Futures, and I just want to say thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, Keith, thank you for all the support over the years, and thanks for listening. Honestly, it means a lot. So super grateful for the opportunity to come and chat with you. Thanks for having me on.
And there you have it, Dave Masters. Very happy to have Dave back on the show. He was a guest host a while ago when I had Jake Snyder from Minus the Bear on the show, back when I was doing the guest host thing. But I'm happy that I was able to get Dave on because Signal Hill, the whole band, was on this podcast back in our first year, episode 17. But Dave was not able to make it. But we did have Rishi and Tim and Brian, and then Rishi was on the show again later after that. But I'm happy that I've gotten to know the guys because I've been listening to them for so long. I mean, their music has just been ingrained in my life. And it was great to talk to Dave, just hearing about how they met each other. Craigslist meeting musicians there or anybody else for anything can be very hit or miss. So I'm happy that those guys found each other and have these connections and have maintained them all throughout the years. Because Rishi ended up moving to Scotland, and then Rishi and Dave ended up moving to New York, and Rishi is in the UK now, but throughout all this moving and all of the changes, the friendships remain. They still make music. They still find time to get together. I think it's awesome stuff. And the new album is fantastic. I've been waiting a long time for a new Signal Hill record, and I highly recommend it to you. And if I didn't make this clear enough during the conversation with Dave, I love every release by Signal Hill. Now, More After We're Gone is my favorite just because it's flawless. It's unbelievably good. There's not a lot of perfect records out there, but More After We're Gone is one of them. But I love everything they've done. The self-titled EP, I would say that is flawless too. More After We're Gone, we've talked about. Distance, the first song on Distance, that riff, I've tried to rip that riff off a bunch of times. Another fantastic EP, Chase the Ghost. Listen to the song The Pacific Northeast on Chase the Ghost. Unbelievably good. Fantastic record too. Oh, and my all-time favorite Signal Hill song, Stunning Clarity. It is impossible to listen to that song and be in a bad mood. It just instantly puts a smile on my face. Check that one out. check all of it out. I mean, I could go on and on about all the albums and all the songs that I like and all that stuff, but pretty flawless discography. Really nice people, awesome band. So thank you so much, Dave, for coming on the show. And now we have our artist spotlight interview with Jai Aronsen, coming to us all the way from Auckland, New Zealand. Jai is in a band called Take Hold. I checked out their EP, which came out earlier this year. Really good stuff. Melodic hardcore, some good melody, some good riffs, some good breakdowns. It's a nice mix of everything. So make sure you go check it out. I'll add some Signal Hill and some Take Hold to the New Scene 2024 Spotify playlist. You can find it on Spotify. I've got all the music from all the bands we talked about on the show this year in that playlist. So make sure you go check it out. So here is Jai Aronsen of Take Hold. Enjoy. All right, we are here now with Jai Aronsen. Jai, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yes, Jai, it's great to have you here. Your band Take Hold just got on my radar, and we put out the excellent Stay Down EP in June of this year, and I'm excited to talk to you about it and a lot of other things. So, Jai, you're coming to us all the way from Auckland, New Zealand, yes?
Yes, I am. Tamaki Makaurau, Auckland, New Zealand, Aotearoa. That's us. We're very proud of it, but not a lot to be proud of, but we do what we can.
I looked it up on the map because I always like to see where exactly people are. And, you know, Australia is already out there in terms of being out there, but where you are seems even more out there because it's like right at the top of the tip of that island.
Yeah, absolutely. So Australia to a lot of the world is one of the most disconnected parts of it. So from people from Europe or the States, traveling to the other side of the planet means Australia. And so if you consider that there is a bit that is just one step further than that, then that incomprehensible for a lot of people at some time. But you know, we're still here.
How is it there? Tell us about how it is in your hometown. Is it like a city? Is it like a town? I'm curious.
So, this is going to sound so quaint. It is a city. Auckland is a city by our standards. It is very few people by international standards. It's quite small. I think it's just under 2 million people in Auckland. But we have just under 5 million people in New Zealand as a whole. So it's big to us, small to basically everyone else. If I had to sort of characterize New Zealand overall in comparison to our neighbors, I would say New Zealand is a lot calmer, I think. It's a lot slower. There's a lot more. I think we take our time a bit, whether for better or worse. I think that really reflects in Kiwi culture.
Got you. Kiwi culture, it's called.
Well, I think that's just how we refer to it. New Zealand culture, I suppose, is a melting pot of lots of different cultural influences, as anywhere is. But I think that we try to bring an attitude to it of calm, of friendliness, of welcome, of openness, and I really hope that manifests to people in other countries.
Yeah, that's the way to be for sure. How about the scene there? Is there like a thriving music scene there?
Well, I mean, again, I think it's another one of those things that by international standards, probably not. I think that our scene is very hardworking. I think that if you need to judge it on a head count, then we're going to come up short. But if you judge it on the passion people put into their work, on the care that people have for the community, for the effort people will go to share their work with others, to provide space for artists to share their work. I think I would consider us to thrive in that regard. We have people who really care about this here, and who are really willing to, do work without pay, to do work without thanks, to really make sacrifices to, keep this sort of subculture going.
Yeah, and I love that it's everywhere. You know, that's one good thing. There's many bad things about the internet, but one good thing is that anybody can access this now, and people like you and I can find each other and talk now.
Yeah, of course. It's great. It builds those bridges. It makes the world smaller, closer together. And I think that if I can listen to a band from New York and identify with everything they're talking about, maybe a kid from New York can listen to a band from New Zealand and understand what we're saying and really have that resonate with them. And I think that's a beautiful thing. That can only be a beautiful thing.
Absolutely. So how did you discover this music? What is your history with it?
So my history with metal and hardcore, I guess, comes from coming up in a family of a few musical people. I came from a family that isn't necessarily all musical. We don't all perform or play music, but I think that we all have a reverence for music itself. Do you ever meet someone who just doesn't listen to music? Like it's just not on their radar.
Only one kid that I can think of from my high school. I just remember he had a website before websites were even really a thing. And I
Yeah.
remember, I'll never forget this. On his website, he said, I don't really listen to music, but I do really like the Jurassic Park soundtrack. And I just thought that was peculiar.
And if that kid is moved by the Jurassic Park soundtrack, then I think that is valid.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that sometimes you meet people and music just doesn't move them. It's just not on their radar. So my family has never been that family. We've all grown up with a reverence for just the power that music has to communicate, to really humanize, and to translate difficult emotions or experiences into a digestible way that can be communicated. So regardless of genre, already I was coming from this environment where I knew music to be a very powerful thing, even if being me, not having any, musical ability or ability to play an instrument, it was something I felt that I couldn't really contribute to, but nevertheless had a tremendous respect for and fondness for. And then obviously you grow up, you go through school, you meet your friends, they influence you. I, like many kids my age, came into metal and hardcore through metalcore bands. The early to mid 2000s era of metalcore was a very interesting time. I had a lot of friends with skinny jeans and straightened hair. And yeah, it was a beautiful time. There was a lot of potential, and in terms of from the perspective of a 12 or 13-year-old kid, this whole sort of window opens up into a world you didn't really know was there, with people who are maladjusted for the same reasons you are, and it really helps give you a sense that there are more people like you. So yeah, I think that through metalcore, through going to trashy local shows in terrible venues with broken equipment. Um, that was the equivalent that I had to going to high school parties. Other kids went to parties and drank. We went to hardcore shows and moshed. That was our equivalent. So it really gave me a sense of sort of social structure, a sense of community, a sense of DIY ethic, which I think is really fundamental to any scene wherever it is in the world. And it really showed me that a bunch of kids can get together in a room and do something really special, even if it is special only to them, and even if from an outside perspective it's nothing. It's not. Uh, it's not a brilliant performance. It's not brilliant songwriting. It's not brilliant from a technical standpoint, but it is still just amazing. Like you see the passion in high school kids who barely know how to play their instruments, but they're doing it anyway. And I think that doing it anyway is one of the great lessons that I learned from this whole sort of genre.
Right. Yeah, I have a lot of similarities with your story, finding it in high school, and then that was it. And we would just go to shows and drive far distances to shows. And that's what I like about this whole thing, is that when you see it, you're like, oh, we're doing it. Our friends are doing it. We can do it. It's not some big arena show that you.
Exactly, and I think that yeah, I think that it really contextualizes how you view musicians and how you view performers and things like that. If I meet someone who learns that I'm in a band, they go, "Oh, you're in a band? Cool." I go, no, it's not. Like, not necessarily. You know, the fact that you play guitar doesn't necessarily make you cool, unless you've never met someone who plays guitar before, in which case, that's very impressive. But, when come up as a high school kid, all your friends are musicians, all your friends are in bands, all your friends are, doing this kind of stuff. And so you're not as easily impressed when someone is like, "Oh yeah, I'm in a band." It humanizes musicians for you. I'm used to going to a venue, watching a band that I love, that changed my life, but they're not at the other end of an arena. They're on a stage that is, the height that's knee height, and I can reach out and touch one of them on the arm if I want to, or I can go up to them after the show. There's no green room. There's one room in the place. I can, walk up to them after the show and have a chat. There's no security guard, tackling people if they try and jump on stage for a stage dive. Um, I can grab the mic out of a singer's hand, and that's all in the context of the culture. And I love that back and forth. I love how uh, the pedestal on which we put musicians is sort of a lot more tempered and hardcore, I think.
So tell us about your band, Take Hold. When does it get started? How does it get started?
So Take Hold, we are I suppose, melodic hardcore band from Auckland, New Zealand. We started out with our first lineup pretty mid to late 2017, I think. Before that, a few members had been jamming together for a few months, maybe about a year and a half, I think. Just trying to find what sound they wanted. They didn't have a rhythm section. They didn't have a vocalist. They didn't have a drummer. It was just two guitarists working together. And they went through a laundry list of different influences and different styles, different genres that they wanted to emulate, different artists that they wanted to emulate, until finally sort of settling into a more technical, metalcore influenced, but very melodic hardcore focused project. This was before I was part of the picture. I was living down south in Wellington, New Zealand's capital city at the time. And I knew of all the people in the band. New Zealand, the hardcore scene is quite small, so it's really an extended family. Most people, you'll at least be aware of them, even if you haven't met them. So they contacted me because I'd been in a band before that in Wellington that was sort of similar stylistically. They knew that I was into the music they wanted to write. They knew that I understood the music that they wanted to write in terms of, which bands do this kind of thing and the real DNA of it. So they reached out to me and said, "We've put a project together. We have a drummer now. We're just looking for a vocalist. If you'd like to be involved, we would love to have you." And they sent me some demos, which I just immediately lost my mind about. They were so much fun. So yeah, it really made me want to commit to moving to another city to join a band, specifically because I was in Wellington at the time. I was not going through a great period of mental health and needed a change of scenery. So this presented a sort of perfect opportunity for that.
How far from Wellington to where you ended up moving?
So New Zealand's divided into two islands, the north and the south. Auckland, as you pointed out, is at the top of the North Island. Wellington is at the bottom of the North Island. So it's about an hour flight, maybe an 8-hour drive. So it's the two cities are you can get from one to the other in a day, but it's still it's still another city to move to. But yeah, it's we got together, we started jamming. The sound was tailored a bit more and made a bit more specific. We knew what we wanted to do. We knew bands we didn't want to emulate. We knew certain, cliches and things that we didn't want to play into. But initially, we were a 5-piece band, so that reflected in our writing a bit more. I think our earlier material was a bit more on the technical side, a bit more on, the metalcore influence shone through a lot more on the early material, just because we were trying to emulate bands like Counterparts were a big influence on us. Things like that were really what we wanted to make. So our early stuff reflected that a lot. Then uh, played our first show in 2018, I believe, and not long after that, one of our guitarists, one of the founding guitarists of the band, left. He now lives in Europe, and so we made the shift to a four-piece hardcore band, which obviously presents a sort of different approach to writing styles. So our new stuff is a lot more riff and groove centric. Obviously, working with one guitar, the the possibility for technicality isn't there as much. But I think we really leaned into it. I think that it shows in the influences we tried to emulate on the most recent EP. And I think it has really influenced where we're going with stuff that we're working on now.
Yes, the new EP is called Stay Down, and it just came out in June of this past year, and I encourage everyone to go check it out. It's it's just great melodic hardcore. I love the sound of it. I get the feels from it, and there's some good mosh thrown in there too.
Thank you very much.
What are some of your influences and band influences for this record?
So for this record, I think it was our second EP. We put out an EP called Disrepair a few years ago, and building upon that, we each came with challenges that we wanted to present to ourselves individually for our specific role in the band, and also things that we wanted our songs to sort of achieve that we didn't feel like we got in our earlier material. So my influences have always been anything very fast, anything very melodic. But also we wanted to get out of the just being compared to Counterparts, because that was very much where we were at with our early stuff. And I'm fine with that. I love that band. They've been a huge influence on me. And we would be remiss to act like we weren't influenced by them. But I think we wanted to get a bit further into it. And so we've started trying to incorporate elements of the older generation of melodic hardcore bands. Stuff like Have Heart, things like Verse. I listened to your brilliant interview with Quinn recently from Verse. A huge influence on me. Very, very cool to hear his take on the genre as well. Have Heart, Verse, stuff like The Carrier has been a big influence on me over the years, just in terms of being able to have so much speed and aggression in your work, but not compromising on the melody, not compromising on the emotional gravity, being able to sort of plunge inward and really sort of deconstruct how you feel at a specific time or discuss a specific topic. These are all bands that I would consider really good at doing those things. So the challenge for us was, how do we write what is on paper simpler music, because it's less technical, it's more down to the rudiments of hardcore punk. How do we write something like that but still push ourselves in terms of what we are trying to express and the stories we're trying to tell? And I think that those bands have always been a really big influence on me. Our guitarist, in fact all of us are also big emo fans. We are well into all of the late 2000s, early mid 2000s emo. That has been a big influence on us as well, particularly instrumentally. So I think that we're trying to work into a lot of post-hardcore influence from bands like Seosin and Under Oath, and all these old bands that when we came up we were bullied for liking, but now it's cool to like Under Oath, and it's cool to like old emo bands, and it's cool to have that show through in your music. So we've been really trying to broaden our horizons on what we can take influence from.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's a great list of influences there too. And I think that's what you do. That's what a lot of bands do, right? You start somewhere, you start with one band that you really like, and maybe we really sound like that band, but then we grow as musicians and our our palette of influences expands and we start incorporating new things, and then we eventually become our own thing.
Yeah, of course. And I think that also your confidence in what you create grows, and you feel, more empowered to take bigger steps outside of your own, lane. So 4 or 5 years ago, we would have, maybe written a very, very heavy, beat down, hardcore centric song, but we wouldn't have wanted to keep it because it didn't feel like it suited us or our aesthetic or our sound or things like that. Whereas, one worldwide pandemic and 5 years later, we're like, no, we don't care. We're going to play some breakdowns. Like we want our friends to kill each other in the pit, and we want to, have all of that. And we can also go in the opposite direction, and we can take influence from, very melodic hardcore bands like Defeater or Miles Away or More Than Life, and bring it down in energy and still have that emotion and still have that sort of we don't need to compromise on our sound in order to just take a big step over in this direction or over in this direction. And that's been really liberating for all of us to be able to, let wider influences shine through.
Yes, why not both? We can have the beat downs and have everybody beat each other up, and we can do some more melodic stuff too.
Exactly. And if you are the kind of person who will cry at a hardcore show if you hear an emotive song, and then immediately turn around and spin kick your friend in the jaw, you're our target market. That's exactly who we want. You're an A1 Take Hold fan.
So what's the plan? Yeah, here's a two-part question. Have we been out to Australia to play? And do we call Australia the mainland, or do we just call it Australia?
So we call Australia, very much so, like as our resentful big brother.
That's what I was curious about.
Yeah, there's a few sort of like cultural differences, but I don't think that I can really say that New Zealand is so much better. There's a couple of things I prefer, but I would equally listen to someone saying Australia is better for a lot of things. In terms of our exposure there, we haven't gotten to go over, unfortunately. A lot of bands from New Zealand eventually go through a sort of graduation period where they all think maybe we could move to Australia and we could really break through. We've got some steam in New Zealand. Unfortunately, then they go to Australia where everything is just 1,000 times bigger. Every scene is 1,000 times bigger. Yes, you may get 1,000 kids turn out to a show, but there'll also be 15 bands on the bill, and you will play first of those 15, and no one will remember you. So yeah, it's a small fish jumping into a big pond and not knowing what to do. So I'm not saying that we won't head out to Australia. We all really want to. Shows in Australia are really fun. The scene there is really encouraging. So many bands from the States will just say Australia is the best place to tour. Unfortunately, a lot of those bands have never been to New Zealand. I will point that out. But I recognize that the logistical problem of traveling to a whole other country to for no guarantee, it can be quite daunting for a lot of bands. But unfortunately, we haven't been lucky enough yet. There are a few bands in our scene who do get out to Australia or do get out to the States or get out to the UK and have had some success, have fans there, and I love that for them. So yeah, no international gigs played so far for us, but who knows what the future holds.
Awesome. Well, I hope to hear more from you and Take Hold. I love the band. I love the new EP, and I encourage everyone else to go check it out as well. And Jai, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and I just want to say thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, man. It's been great.